At this point, we will move on to the consent agenda. Most of you know the consent agenda is for items that are generally considered routine by the department. And if after public comment, the board members choose to pull one of the items for further discussion, thank you. And we will do that. The chair will plug it into the regular agenda when it seems most viable to do so. Other than that, the consent agenda items are generally approved in a single vote. So at this point, I will invite any of the public to speak on any of the consent agenda items noted as CA1 through CA9. Thank you. Give me a break.
Okay, take a breath. I'm Ron Udice. I'm the foreman of the Mariposa County Grand Jury. I would like to make a comment on the consent agenda item CA3. Refer to page 9 of the recommendations, number 3, and I quote, "The Board of Supervisors takes exception with the wording to lead the effort to build a new, more respectful and cohesive culture within the organization. Again, it has not been established that a disruptive environment exists in the Human Services Department," end quote. With all due respect, the grand jury finds the statement to be myopic and dismissive. We believe the grand jury has demonstrated that the Human Services Department has had serious cultural and professional deficiencies. The word disruptive is your word, it's not our word. But I'd like to end this on a positive note. On behalf of the grand jury, I would like to thank Mr. John Wallace for his cooperation in our investigation. John behaved in a professional manner. He was a true gentleman in a difficult situation. We are extremely fortunate to have him in Mariposa County. Thanks, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Good morning. My name is George Kaplan, and I'm speaking to you this morning as a reader of grand jury reports and a reader of responses to grand jury reports. The simple point I want to make is that I'm sure that when you respond to a grand jury report, it's just one small item in a very busy week. But of course, for the grand jury, it's one large item in a very busy year. And it seems to me going forward, it would be tremendously helpful to the spirit of the county, the spirit of agencies in responding to grand juries, and a great change of kind of attitude and culture if at any time the grand jury actually did something that you found helpful and useful, if you would specifically acknowledge that. Thank you.
Any further comments? All right, seeing none.
With cattle, I'm going to kind of slow in my old age. I take great issue with your response to the grand jury report. I don't feel that you did it any justice whatsoever, and you're just sliding over everything. I'd like to add that I'm very happy that Javon is the new director, and I'm sure that within the next 5 or 6 months we're going to see some positive changes over there. And again, I will reiterate, if there are not positive changes, then I will take this to a state level. Thank you.
Okay, I will close the public comments, bring it back to the board at this point for discussion. I think Supervisor Bibby needed to recuse on a couple.
I would ask if we could do a separate motion for 7 and 8. Separate that. I have a family member in sheriff's management, and I have not been participating in the negotiation process for CA 7 and 8. I couldn't tell you if that is the correct wording or not. And then on CA 3, I just want to make a comment. We are certainly going to, no matter what is in here for comments, we are certainly going to review with the new director, and we've already discussions with personnel and CAO and acting director John Lawless. I know individual board members have been meeting on a one-on-one basis. I happen to sit on the mental health governing board, and both I and previous chairs have had numerous meetings on this, and we will continue until we don't hear issues coming out of that department. We are hoping that with new staff and a change in policy and office meetings, it's my understanding there are staff meetings that are starting to take place. We're hoping we can rebuild the relationship and address some of those concerns. We are not always privy on personnel one-on-one complaints because that's handled by personnel and there are protections in place there. But know that when we get that information through a grand jury report or word of mouth or individual, maybe personnel, individuals that have waived that confidentiality and have spoken to us one-on-one, we are certainly picking up the phone and trying to address that as best as we can, following the realms of bargaining units and employee protections. So know that we are going to constantly be following up. This is a department that has received numerous inquiries and attention, and so we're going to continue monitoring this. We have employee department head evaluations coming up in May. We will be looking forward to having feedback from the new director after she's had an opportunity to also get a basis, and we will also be sharing information with the new director on information that we've received over the past years or so and individual complaints coming in, so those can get addressed.
Thank you. I actually would, I have some support for the comments that we heard about the Board of Supervisors' comments on the wording considerable personnel problems have not been firmly established. I mean, we're using a lot of, words that are relative, what's firmly, what's considerable. And I think it would be appropriate to change that. We all were in unison in much appreciation for the work that the grand jury did and that they brought it to our attention midterm. And I think I really appreciate the comments. And as I look at that item, I think you can just pull that sentence, the wording considerable personnel problems has not been firmly established, and the response reads just fine. And then I think that this board should consider giving a separate statement on the work of the grand jury at an appropriate time here. So I will pull this item for further consideration immediately here, and that is item 3, CA3. So if there's no further comment, we will consider the consent agenda minus items CA7, CA3, 7, and 8. Supervisor Goode.
I would offer a motion to approve that balance absent those stated.
Oh, and I have to, I'm sorry. Now I've really messed up. There's a correction to the minutes. Can you withdraw that for a second?
I would withdraw that motion.
Thank you. I would suggest that on page 9 of our packet in recommendations, item 1A, that we just remove that first sentence. It goes some distance in not making assertions that the grand jury finds objectionable, and I think that would be okay. But if anyone else agrees with that, motion. Supervisor Goode.
I concur, because I can't say that we haven't received considerable inquiries, and it has received considerable attention of the entire county, including governing boards in future board members will read this. I often go back to previous grand jury reports. The public reads it. And so I think it should be validated that we have received incoming complaints, inquiries, examples, and we've been following proper protocol and forwarding those to personnel. But it needs to be validated, and it needs to be assuring that we're going to continue monitoring it and make the necessary corrections. So I concur.
Then there's no further comment. Supervisor Jones?
We need a motion for that?
We do.
Okay, I would move that the wording be changed as presented.
Thank you.
Discussion.
We have a motion, a second before we let you talk. You want a second?
Second.
All right, Supervisor Smith, we have a motion. Supervisor Jones, second.
No, I'm just unclear about precisely the sentence where.
On page 9 of your packet, in the middle, recommendations, item 1A,
Right, okay.
remove the sentence that says the wording considerable personnel funds has not been currently spent.
No, I got that. And then on 10, is there a need to make an adjustment there in terms of the language? Then I have no objection to 9 in that sentence. But on page 10, if I can find it again. Just lost it on the computer. The response on number 3 there, where it says again, the second to last sentence is not established, do we need to adjust that? That's my question.
Thank you, and I do believe that the two sentences, the two middle sentences, if they were removed, would fill the same, would follow the front, the earlier one.
Okay.
We have a motion second, we're going to have to adjust it.
All right. Okay.
So if the maker and the seconder would also recognize removing in item 3 of the recommendations, the second sentence, which begins, the Board of Supervisors takes exception with the wording to lead the effort to build a new, more respectful workplace culture within the organization. Again, it has not been established that a disruptive environment exists in the Human Services Department. That would leave that sentence reading, the Board of Supervisors conducted a recruitment recently and hired a new Human Services Director. The new Director will manage Human Services Department. Same high standards required of all county officials.
And I would amend it to that wording.
Agreeable to the second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That passes 5-0. Thank you, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. We can all just say, just let it go, and then it bothers us. And I really appreciate that. We will move on to board recognitions.